When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Well, it's fair to say that poor old Ned learnt that lesson the hard way. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today we are reviewing debatedly the best book of all time, A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. If you have not heard of this book, then I assume that you are doing everything you can to isolate yourself from society, because this is one of the most well-known books of all time. So let's review it. If you want to see my review of the book series as a whole, then I will link that in the description box for you to check out. So this is the first book that got me into fantasy, and it is now my favourite genre of book to read. Although in terms of fantasy, this feels very realistic, and that is such an asset to an author. It felt like a hybrid between real life events with fantasy elements embedded into it throughout. So this book is apparently loosely based on War of the Roses. For example, House Stark, York, House Lannister, Lancaster. Do you see where I'm going with this? So I think that that's what gives this book its historic, realistic feel. However, this book series is one of a kind, so even if it did have some inspiration behind it, the plots, they are so original. This is not an easy read. This book itself is around 800 pages long, and it's actually one of the shorter ones in the series. This is not wine, by the way, although I have had a very stressful week. So I would say that perhaps this first book is based on the Stark family and how they are all pulled in different directions. But I would say that the overall plot of the series that runs throughout every single book is the inevitable clash between the mighty houses of the realm. So the main inciting incident in this book is around Ned Stark, who is many people's favourite character, being called to King's Landing to assist King Robert, who is also his friend, but is currently sitting the Iron Throne. And Ned learns a secret, many secrets, whilst he is there, which, because Ned is a very honest, admirable man, he does like to tell people the truths and tell people the secrets that he has found out. However, if you've read this book, then you will be aware that that is the worst decision that you could ever make in the Game of Thrones. We'll talk a little bit more about Ned and his stupidity a bit later on. Then we have Jon Snow. He decides to take the black and join the Night's Watch over at the Wall. And goes down over there. He can't really inherit. He was born out of wedlock, so his best option at this stage is to take the black. Then we have Bran, who unfortunately becomes a cripple because he found out too much. He, again, found out a secret. Because I'm not allowed to say the actual term for this because the video is likely to get banned, Bran finds out that a brother and a sister love each other very much. Then we also have Arya, the tomboy, who just wants to learn how to wield a sword. And we have Sansa, who is delusional and believes in the Disney princess fairy tales. Honey, Prince Charming don't exist. And she has to relearn how she perceives the world. But she is exposed to brutality in many various ways in order to gain that perspective. Those are the Starks. In this book, we also have Tyrion the Dwarf. He is a very witty, humorous character. His chapters are so funny to read. And then we have Daenerys, who is the last surviving heir of the Targaryen line, and she is trying to claim her throne back and gaining possession of 3 dead dragon eggs. FYI, I love the dragon storyline. So now that I've talked you through stuff that you already know if you've read the book, let's talk about my opinions. Both the descriptive writing and the dialogue is fantastic. Normally an author will have their main strengths in one specific feature, whereas George R.R. Martin seems to have strengths in everything. One thing that I would say is that there are a lot of characters in this book, and it can become quite overwhelming and quite confusing to remember them all. And for the side characters who don't have point of view chapters, that can sometimes get a little bit confusing. My brain gets muddled up very, very easily. I am not the brightest person in the world, but I just feel like at times I was confused as to who was who. Now, I think they probably know that because in the back of the book, you do have every single character what house they're from, what their relations are. So you can go back and forth. If you are confused as to who is who, you can just nip to the back of the book. So I think that the author was probably aware that there are a lot of characters in this. If you're more intelligent than me or you've got a good memory, that won't be a problem for you. It is very skilled how Martin adapts each chapter to the perspective of the character. When you are reading Tyrion's chapters, they really feel like they're coming from Tyrion. Then when you're reading Sansa's chapters, they really feel like they're coming from Sansa. The fact that Martin can embody all these different personalities, all these different perspectives of life, that is so incredibly skilled. And I've not read another book where there's loads of chapters from loads of different point of views, but each person feels different. I've read many books before where the chapter could have been written by any of the characters, whereas in this book, you don't need to know whose point of view it's from. You could read a paragraph and instantly know who it is because it's written in the way that that person would think and perceive the world. That is such a skill. His descriptive prose is atmospheric, especially when he is building a sense of foreboding to come, such as winter is coming, and the way that that is embedded into descriptive writing, it really adds to the tension. In this book, suffering is everywhere. It doesn't matter who it is, they can suffer and they can be tortured. Martin does not shy away from anything. If he's going to talk about something cruel, he is going to go into the detail. He talks through some very hard-hitting themes, and I do feel like you have to go into reading this being aware of that. It is explicit, but that just adds to the impact of it. There are also many political themes running throughout the book, and one thing that I really enjoy about this book are the council scenes, where you really do get to see the political issues going on and the different conflicts between people at the council tables as well. It's very interesting, and it's a side of history that I've never really thought about before, but I can imagine that that actually happened back in the day. In this book, most of the characters are flawed. There is no hero. Normally in a book, you will have a main hero who saves the day. That does not happen in this book. Even the good guy, Ned Stark, even he is flawed because he has had a son out of wedlock. Although, saying that, whether or not Jon Snow is actually Ned Stark's is a whole different theory that I could make a whole different video on. I love the intricate history that is referred to throughout this book. When I was recommended to read this book series by my husband, he said his favourite character was Sir Arthur Dayne. I was reading this, wondering when Sir Arthur Dayne was going to come up, but he's actually a part of the history. I love the intricate history of how the dragons died out. There's so much history that is already set in stone that it feels like these things actually happened. I also love the unpredictability. With this, I had a lot of guesses as to what was going to happen, and I didn't get any of them right. And there is that like gasp moment when Ned Stark meets his demise, which I don't think anybody would have guessed that that was going to happen. And I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the books in the series. I love that you just cannot know what is going to happen next unless you've read it and are then rereading it. This book encompasses a theme of cause and effect. Each action has a consequence, which means that there is no plot armour. No one can really escape death or brutality. No one is safe. Rip Ned Stark. For people who are the show watchers only, he's played by Sean Bean. How did you not know that he was going to die? The man dies in everything that he is casted to be in. Going back to the political theme that I mentioned earlier, it's clear that Ned Stark is very bad at politics. The reason why he passes away is because he's too honest. To survive in this world, you need to know when to withhold information, when to lie, when to tell half-truths, how to play the game. He is too much of a good, admirable guy. Isn't it monumentally stupid that he tells his entire plan to Cersei? Like, do you think that she's not going to retaliate? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I've heard a lot of claims that there is the overuse of assault in this book. I do get that because almost every single chapter has some level of brutality. However, I can imagine that it was also incredibly common in that medieval time. There weren't as many laws back then. People were kind of given free rein to just kill for like things like treason. People were killed for being witches. If people made a verbal remark, their tongues would be cut out. That is very common for the time period that I imagine this is set in. I think that this is the best first book of a series ever. I have read so many book series where the first book was mediocre, a bit meh, but the rest of the series was brilliant. Cough, Akatar, cough. This is the best first book of a series that I have ever read. There's just so much to it, like I can't even process my thoughts. It's just brilliant, and I would love to do book reviews for all the rest of the ones in this series as well, so look out for that. I'm feeling really passionate. I kind of want to sit down and read it all again. So that is my review of George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones. I would like to leave you with my favourite quote. Let me know what your favourite quotes are from this book as well, but I think that this is a really powerful one. Bran thought about it. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That is the only time a man can be brave, his father told him. Why does that quote give me chills? I actually have goosebumps on my arm right now. I am having literal chills. So I hope that you enjoyed this book review. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up to let me know, and please leave me a comment about what you thought about this book. What are your reviews on it? If you like my content and you want to see more from me, please subscribe because it is free and it lets you know every time I upload a video. I will see you next time, or rather you'll see me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.